Hello dear viewer, and welcome to this showcase and review of Dark Deity on Steam with me, Jalanon, at Lunar Nebula Gaming. So, let's start with Dark Deity and what parents should know about it. This is a game like Fire Emblem, so tactical RPG, strategy RPG, whatever you want to call it, SRPG, TRPG. And you get units throughout the game. They can have relationships with each other through conversations and things, and then you build them up and go through the campaign, right? There's not too much in terms of gore or anything like that. Usually enemy units just kind of fade out, and so on and so forth like that. There are, in those relationship conversations though, some romantic relationships, some innuendos and things sometimes, talk about alcohol, things like that. So I would personally say Dark Deity should probably be about teen in its rating. That seems fair to me. There is no ESRB at the moment. I believe they are working on a Switch port, but not sure. Nintendo Switch, that is. Now, other things to note about the game is it's made by a small developer called Sword and Axe LLC. Their publisher is Freedom Games, and basically they were able to get Kickstarter to help them figure out all their monetary stuff and get Dark Deity made. Now, they are continuing to update the game, so when I played it, basically, we go over here, I did about, probably more like 60 or 70 hours, because I did sometimes leave this running in the background, and I had to go take breaks and things. But yeah, there's a lot of content here. I think people will be happy with it. The price is $24.99 normally, $24.99 US, and for me, I was willing to pay that, but because they continue to update the game and everything, it doesn't feel finished. So I'm going to suggest that you take a look at the game, see if you like things like Fire Emblem, and if you do, it'll probably be worth it to you, but there are some issues with quality of life things, where sometimes the battle information at the top of the screen is incorrect during enemy turns. Sometimes little glitches will happen where it'll bypass all the combat animations during the enemy's turn if, like, you promote during that, etc., etc. So, what else do you need to know? Well, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of customization as well for the actual campaign. So, in a lot of ways, Dark Deity feels like it really did focus on making the mechanics really interesting and kind of streamlined a lot of the weapon upgrades and everything for the players. So I think players should note that if you like Fire Emblem and kind of are like weapon durability is dumb, which I think Fire Emblem has kind of been doing that more and more as the series has aged, and that, yeah, you would probably enjoy this weapon system a lot. Now we can see things like base stat modifiers. We can make our units terrible, we can make them great, we can get double the gold, which honestly, the normal mode of the campaign feels pretty good already. The hero, experience golden aptitude set to their regular levels, intended mode of play for most players. This felt pretty difficult already. Part of that is because the units have their own specialties depending on which class they are and everything like that. But yeah, if you... We might take a look at Deity real fast. Let's do this. Let's jump on in. But as you can see, there's a lot of options and customization you could do. You can make the run easier or harder on yourself. There's this good music in the background. Now, some people have complained that there's not enough variety in music. Because I played this kind of like once a day for one session at a time, kind of one chapter at a time, I didn't get tired of the music. So, for me, it seems fine. But some people did say in their reviews online that that did get to them. Now this is the Kingdom of Delia. That's where we all start. We can keep going. There's no skip as far as I'm aware. I'm trying to remember. There might be. I do feel like the game is made more for controllers than computer. I liked playing with the mouse because then I could move around the map faster. but I do think the controller works just fine, if not better, for selecting your units and going between your units faster. I just liked being able to check out the whole map. Here's Chapter 1. Let's go, you know what, we'll go back here to slot 6. This is a deity mode, so it will be tougher, our units will be weaker, etc., etc. So, another thing about Dark Deity, you get a little bit of voice acting occasionally for various lines and things, but it's not going to do all the text for you and all that. So, some people will probably like that. Adds little hints of the characters and their personalities in there without being, like, the sole focus of the game. And you can read at your own pace and all that. So, some people will probably like that. I like it. Feels like a good little accent to characters and how they're feeling and all that. There are times the wrong character is highlighted during some of these conversations. But generally speaking, the information in the bottom of the screen will be the correct person talking and all that. And right now we're going to Brookstead Academy. Here are our characters. We've got Irving, kind of our protagonist man. Alden, our young wizard, who is probably the best unit in the game in general, just because of his personal skill. So anyway, we're about to enter. Here we go. Our trial for the day. Da-da-da-da-da, trials. Now there are constant loading screens in terms of when you are starting a chapter and when you're ending and stuff like that. They don't last that long, like 10 seconds, 20 seconds at most. Ooh, they did update the pixel art, good. So I started this during the 1.5 update. One of the reasons I think Dark Deity is a good thing to get if you enjoy strategy RPGs and the like, is the devs really care about their game. They have continued to update it. It's not super polished yet in terms of like the final boss battle. A little bit of a spoiler here, so you can skip ahead 10 seconds if you want. He uses different weapons based on what you're weak to, and it constantly cycles so that I did not get the gimmick at first because I was trying to play this blind, basically. So yeah, sometimes that's a bit of an issue. Now, one thing we can do is I will select Irving right here. As you can see, there are some little green arrows and red arrows on units. The red arrows indicate Irving does not really have much of an advantage against these guys. Now, my stats mean it really doesn't matter at this point in the game, because everybody's pretty low level right now. But in the future, going against people you have the advantage against is really good. So, I can do this. I might do this, or I can push people, because I'm a warrior, basically, as my current subclass, I guess you could say. Starting class, archetype? Archetype. We'll go with archetype. And I'm sure they have their own terminology for it. Now, Garrick is a ranger. Marin is a cleric, so she's our healer. I do like how they do healing in this game as well. We have Alden, our wizard mage. So he can do teleportation of people. Garrick can make people move one square further, etc., etc. And the promotion paths in this game can make you interact with those abilities in different ways. Like, if we turned Alden into an illusionist, he could teleport people from an extra space away. Stuff like that. Garrick could become a Green Knight, which is what I made him into, and he can give people bonus to defense and resistance with that ability, haste, which makes him a good supporting character later on, but sadly, his stats did not keep up with him when I played. So there is some randomness in the stat growth, much like in Fire Emblem. However, another good thing about the promotion screen is you can see which stats are more likely to grow and everything, which is pretty cool. Now, without further ado, let's not get in trouble. Let's turn on our enemy range with the Y button on my keyboard. So if I stay to the left of these guys, nobody's going to be able to hit me. But I'm going to go in the middle because I'm Irving. Look at me! Okay. And as you can see, they have some very good pixel art as well. Now, not all the animations are, I would say, incredibly polished. Like the Gladiator's animation seems a little slow for some reason. That could just be a stylistic thing. They did have different animators create different classes and things like that. Now we have our 4 weapon types. We have the balanced weapon type, the power weapon type, the critical hit, I guess you could say, finesse, I think is what it's called, the accurate one, and so on and so forth. So, if we want Garrick to hit, for sure, we have to use the longbow. Alright, Garrick, do it. There we go. As you can see, they have their little vials and things. Alright, Alden, you're a mage, man. Why don't you mage me? Yoink. There we go.
That settles that.
Amazing. And their HP bar depletes pretty interestingly as well. There is a relationship system. It seems like... I'm not sure exactly how it works, honestly. But it seems like as long as units are in the same battle, they gain progress towards relationship conversations. They may need to be in certain battles together in order to activate those. It's a little hard to tell. Okay, Marin is not really the person we want to depend on to deal damage, but we're going to try. Okay, 64%, we missed. Marin. Thankfully, you can heal yourself. Except not. One day, we can promote her to a class that could, in fact, heal itself based on how much it heals other people and stuff. Which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I really like the mechanical aspects of Dark Deity. I think they did a lot of good work in it, and I enjoy the game quite a bit, personally. Now, I didn't mention the damage typings and the damage resistances, so slashing damage is better versus chainmail armor. So right now, there aren't too many people with chainmail. This guy's got leather armor. But we still have a bonus to leather, don't we? Oh, sorry. We are better against leather and rune cloak. We are worse against plate and chain. Whereas arcane damage over here, I'm clicking shift, by the way, to look at these people's profiles, is better versus plate armor and chain armor, and weaker against leather and rune cloaks. So that's usually what the green arrows represent as your damage type versus their armor type. There are, of course, the different classes and everything that also seem to have different levels of advantage. Personally, I am still not the best at understanding that. Now, if you are lost, I am right-clicking, and I can go to tutorials, and I can look at all this stuff. It is pretty useful. I would say probably at least look into damage charts and stuff. Promotions, they're, you know, it's kind of fun to see them when they pop up. Now, when my unit here would reach level 10, I just promote, period, even if it's on the enemy's turn. But currently, at least, if I promote during my turn, I get an extra turn with that character, which is kind of fun. So there's a little tidbit. That's right, Garrick, this is fun. You are better against their healer, aren't you? You are. Well, we're pretty likely to hit with the warbow. We do that. As you can see, I have a B versus their C. Elementary, my dear Watson. You. Oh, you got this, Irving. There you go. Good work, you. Alright. Just to show what other abilities look like, let's see, can I heal anybody else right now? No, nobody else is hurt other than Marin and Irving. And she can't reach Irving right now, unless I do something with phase and heal.
Stay with me.
Now, it does feel like there are some classes that are just better than others in terms of what you can do with their pre-built-in abilities. Like, Adepts get Chain, which is really good. And one of their promotions lets them do it at a distance. And poor Alden is having some issues, apparently. Now, his personal skill over here is the only skill he's got. As you promote, your classes will give you extra little skills and things, and you can build them up. So, basically, if you make Alden promote into, like, say, a Pyromancer, he will get some cool stuff like Fire Soul and things like that, which will let him sometimes deal, like, extra damage, basically, like 1.3 times damage 25% of the time, and that can add into a completely different style of mage at the 3rd tier, and you get all of those bonuses, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yeah, we need to heal Alden. So as you can see, We've got a green square when I select Marin.
Stay with me.
Okay, she could only heal him 11 at the moment. Okay, where do I want you, Garrick? I kind of want you to get hurt so then we can heal for XP. Now, one other thing to note is you can use your abilities pretty consistently to gain XP. Like, phasing there, I believe, gave me 15 XP. If you keep using it over and over and over and over and over, that will eventually decrease. Let's use Arcane Missiles. Bam. In general, I would suggest, if you don't know which weapon type you want to go for balanced. It's usually less heavy than the other weapons, and that means you are less likely to get doubled in attacks. So this game, like some of the old Fire Emblem games, you need 5 true speed over your opponent in order to double. So with Arcane Blast, if I can't select it right now because I'm not active. So like right here we see Irving's short sword, true speed 6, long sword, true speed of 2. So he is going to have a very hard time doubling anyone with the long sword at this point in the game. And in fact, I would not expect it, unless he had some crazy class skill sort of thing, which he does not at the moment. We can be careful.
Hope you don't mind.
Do that, get some XP. I think that was 13, probably because this is deity mode. But yes, you can do things like that to help your weaker units level outside of battle, which I really like. So then it's also easier to keep units pretty similar in level. I was able to keep about 26 units pretty close to level to the end of the game in normal mode, and that seemed really fair. Like, there were some units that fell off to power levels, but that was more due to how they leveled up and did not necessarily lean into their classes enough with the random leveling stats. And that sometimes happens in Fire Emblem.
Let's do it.
Sometimes that happens. Like when I played Path of Radiance, I had the Wyvern Rider Jill. And she was really great the first time I played. Second time, she could not get the strength stat for the life of her. And that's just sometimes how RNG goes.
Stay with me.
It's all about managing that. Let's see. Irving, you can stand here and be useless. So let's do this instead to get you some wonderful XP. And we put you over here, Garrett. We see if you can have some fun. Yeah. So as you can see, we have a very good stat window over here about, okay, we do have an advantage of A versus B. We've got crit percent, 4% chance to crit right now. We get 16% with the crossbow, which is, you know, it's decent. It's a thing. It's a thing. Whereas the longbow, we know we can do that. Let's see, and I can switch to the other guy. Short bow, less likely to hit, but still very likely. So really, I'm gonna do this. Now, my problem in this game was I kept on double clicking, and that can get you in trouble. So try not to double click too often. If you have an itchy trigger finger like I apparently do, then yeah, I encourage you to put some soothing balm upon it. But yeah, let's use another heal. We will continue to advance inexorably. Let's see, you can double, sure. Yoink. Yoink again. Alright, and there's a different animation when we win with the warrior versus the mage and all that. Cool, cool. But yeah, as you can see, parents, the violence really isn't a big deal in this game. It's like, yeah, fun little pixel art, and that's about it. I think what I'm going to do, haste,
Chop, chop.
phase,
Have fun.
there we go. Okay, so Alden's personal skill ensures he always gets at least 4 stats from leveling, which is very good. It makes him pretty much always a good unit to rely on. Whereas other people, that randomness, ooh, it can really mess them up. Let's put it that way. Like poor Garrick last time couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in my game. But he does have crits and heal plus 15% damage, so you might want to build him with a crit weapon. But the bows in general have a lot more accuracy than the other weapons, so that might be more important for you. Just as a heads up. Just give Marin a bit of a haste. Irving. Show him he is not deserving to be here. So if I wanted to be a little risky, I could use a saber, since it has a better chance of critting than my short sword. Yeah. Unlikely. Okay. And there are different animations for the criticals, as well as kind of...
Come then, test your resolve.
There we go. Yes. And often just ignore the damage that shows up in multi-strike
Grows lighter
animations.
with every swing.
Look at the forecast when you're about to attack, and that will actually give you the actual damage. Like multi-hits will sometimes show up as like doing more damage or less damage.
How can I help?
Just pay attention to the forecast. Some of the personal skills with like crit damage will also affect
Hard work
damage
is paying off.
that you just have to calculate outside of the forecast, basically, because it will not tell you all the time the extra damages that your promotions will give you. Hey, Sterling! Okay, this is my brother. And by my brother, I mean Irving's brother. That's right, Sterling. Irving is here to take you down. One other thing to note is we have a red diamond and a blue diamond. So red diamond in general means something like this is the boss. Blue diamond means when you take this character out, they will drop this item to you. And if you have a full inventory, it will go into your convoy, which is a great quality of life thing. So yes, we have Sterling here in a promoted class already. Head of the curve, aren't you, Sterling, at level 2? Okay. Well, what do I want to do? I think I want to do this. A little bit of this. A little bit of that. Good level. Ooh,
Proudly meeting expectations.
that is very good. Dexterity is pretty important for archers. We want them to be able to hit, not quit.
Have fun.
Alright, we'll do that. Heal Marin. Actually, I will hit shift, go into my pickaxe so that I have a better chance of not being hit too much.
Glad you're okay.
Thank you, Alden. I appreciate your consent. Saber, Kodachi, short sword. Yeah, we'll saber. Alright. This ain't Fate Stay Night, but we got a saber. It took care of the job, didn't do it in one, but that means we get more healing in. So, you know what? Oof. But my healer, though. Okay. And now... Oh, can't she heal herself at this point with her personal skill? I forget. Seems like she might have been. Let's see. Caretaker. Ah, yes. Healed for 40% of any heal given. Makes her a very good healer, as you can tell. She has been able to tank and spank. It's been pretty good. What do we want to do here? Alden, let's get you some XP. My lad. Yoink.
Little
Okay.
warning next time?
Yep. A little bit of warning. Without warn Sterling that we are here.
Sorry in advance.
Oh, well, goodbye, Sterling. So what I should have done to maximize experience points was to at least heal with Marin before we attacked. But this is just for showcase and review purposes. So as you saw, the little hearts popped up. They
hope I helped.
may or may not mean anything for the relationship stuff. Hard to tell at this point, but I'm betting in the future, being near your friends within like 2 spaces and dealing damage will generally show those hearts. So yeah, we also get a little chapter statistics at the end of each chapter, which is kind of fun. You can kind of see who's holding you back and who's being an MVP. And usually it'll also show you your MVP, saying a little thing at the end there, like Alden just did. Okay, we have another loading screen. It won't take too long. Aha, not bad, little brother. That's right, Sterling. That is right. I did, in fact, defeat you. All right. So let's get through Brookstead. You'll see at the end of the chapter there is a saving slot. In general, I would suggest get through this stuff. We get our little chapter 2, we get our save. Boop. So load save slot also means save. That is another thing I hope they change in the future. But yes, we can also click escape in here and go back to options, main menu, resume. Let's go back to the main menu real fast. All right. Here I can try to load in one of my other saves. I have bonds here. Let's find out. Okay, well, this is the promotion screen. This is perfect. In this chapter, a little bit of spoilers, maybe skip 10 seconds ahead. you get some new friends and recruits. This is how the promotions work. Brooke can become one of these 4 classes. As you can see, we also see new skills. Cruel Efficiency, guaranteed to hit enemies below 40% health. Fatal, 5% chance to insta-kill. We also see Aptitude, so what's the likelihood of her getting certain stats now? And some of them go down. So, Fortitude is your magic resistance. You know what, I'll just go through this. HP, hit points, pretty self-explanatory. Strength, how hard you hit with physical weapon. Magic, how hard you hit with a magical weapon. Defense, how much you mitigate physical damage. Fortitude, blah, blah, blah. How much you mitigate magical damage. Dexterity, how good you are at hitting things. Mastery, basically gives you an advantage over any classes that you already have advantage against and mitigates a little bit of people who are better against you. So probably one of the best stats in the game. I really don't know exactly how the calculation works, but one of the characters in the future, spoiler alert, Ren is an assassin who has very high mastery, very low strength when I played him, and he was still dealing up to like 40 or 50 damage based on his advantages. So I think this is probably one of the best stats in the game, just for keeping your damage relevant and making you take less damage in theory. Speed is how fast you are. It lets you double things with your higher true speed. Your weapon weight is affected that with your strength set also helping you take on the weapon's weight. Luck affects a lot of things, and I'm not entirely certain exactly how it works, but there are crit rates. It seems like certain classes have a different base crit rate. Like, I think the Stalker has a higher base crit rate than the Raider, for example. But honestly, Brooke, what do we want from you? So we can kind of think through this a little bit, since we know what all these classes are now. If you've seen my playthrough, you also will know. Then I can kind of think, okay, disarm range +2, huge. So rogues can actually disarm or get rid of the weapons bonuses applying to a unit for an entire turn, on your turn and their turn, basically, until the next round. So that could be very significant in terms of like somebody having a very high crit weapon. You can disarm them from using that, and then you are a lot less likely to die, which is pretty nice. It doesn't usually work on bosses. That is pretty important to note. Speed increases armor penetration. But the Raider has an interesting ability where you get more power, which is basically the calculation the game does of your damage dealing ability, right? With whatever weapon you're using. So you get more power against enemies at full health, but pillage. 3% chance to gain a stat up item after a kill. And pretty much all stat up items give you like +2s, except for the Guga stake, which gives you +5 HP. So all stat up items are pretty good. So if you wanted to try to be really lucky, you could try to do this and then just constantly look for stat up items with the Raider. It's not often enough for me to say that this is perfect. So you'd want to do this based on stats more than anything, and the fact that you get a high movement speed with a horse, so 7 movement speed. Some characters will be able to get up to 8 or 9, but 7 is very good early game. Most characters have about 5 or 6. And you can see also some of these guys have different damage types and armor types, so that can really affect your unit in terms of like what advantages they have. Duelist is pretty good. I really like the Duelist. It was very good later in the game for one of my characters, let's put it that way. But yeah, right now, she currently has crit modifier increased against full health enemies. So, I think that's why I chose Raider the first time, because we had higher crit, we had the ambush, and we also got the potential for setup items early in the game. So, that all made sense to me. It still kind of makes sense to me. But, knowing what I know, there's still just... Disarm is always good. Just always a good option to have. So I would probably go Thief, Raider. We could probably go Duelist as well with Brooke. Now, another thing to note is I know, based on how I've played in the past, that this would actually give me another disarm bonus later in the game. So stacking this early disarm means I would not necessarily need this one's version in order to have range, but if I wanted to be able to outrange like magic users so that, you know, they wouldn't necessarily be able to attack me and have a weapon and stuff on the units that I don't want them to be able to hit, yeah, we could disarm with our thief from like 5 spaces away, and then we could chain them with an adept that had become a surge and then like a dragon rider, and then they will only be able to hit who we want them to hit, basically. Now, getting rid of a weapon doesn't get rid of their attack range, it just means their weapon bonuses don't apply. Sometimes that means they're faster, actually, because weapons can be heavy. So, anyway, that's a lot of information that may or may not be relevant to you. But I think we go with Thief this time around. Rook. Okay, and then here's her sister, who can become a mage. Let's see. I'll just do this for now. That's what I did last time. We'll do that for now. Okay. Let's see. Do I have any bond conversations in this save file for us? I might not. This is right before a battle, I think. I don't think you get bonds until later in the game. Not really. Not significantly, anyway. Nope, this is the map prep. So, at the very least, we can look at that. Later on, we will get the chance to select different units. You click escape when you use the keyboard. So normally you'll be able to choose 14 units once you've unlocked enough characters and stuff, which feels pretty good when there's a roster of 30 characters, I think. So you can take almost half your team every time, which is pretty good. As you can see, we have our map. The characters we just had recruited basically will not move. We can move these guys around. As we're hovering over them, we can see who they're good against, who they're bad against. Now, enemies, same dealio. Usually hovering over them will show you who the enemy is good against, bad against in your team, which can be a little, like, off-putting in your brain sometimes, because you're like, wait a second, am I not good against this? Oh wait, I was hovering over the wrong person. Oops. So, that's something to look out for. Let's see, we got Irving and all this stuff. We got Elias, our adept. We got Bianca, our adept. Once again, they can chain, which prevents units from moving. And if you do that at range, that's pretty fun later on. But it is one of the, I would say, weaker adept classes that gets that ability. So, you know, if we were doing deity mode, I would probably build around being able to disarm and chain at range, and then just make a few units that are very good at tanking damage and dealing damage, and just trying to get through that, while also having at least 1 or 2 healers every battle. Which, the game is very good at giving you a bunch of healers. Another thing to note about Dark Deity is it is not designed with permadeath in mind, normally. Now, we are going to go back to the main menu. I believe you can turn that on in the campaign customization, but in general, units will take grave wounds, which will get rid of at least 1 stat point from something permanently. Once again, you can buy stat up items, so you can mitigate that. I do wish they had like a good list of wounds a unit has taken, stuff like that, to make you feel more involved maybe. But at the very least, another thing to note is they do have a battle save. Battle save auto saves at the beginning of your turn. So, if you are in the middle of a turn off the game, and forgot, you know, about all of that, it'll turn you back to the start of that turn. I think that is still a decent feature, and most of the time you're probably not going to be in the middle of a turn and leave the game anyway, since you have to be sitting at a computer and all that. Alright, so, what else should people know about Dark Deity? What would I suggest? I would suggest, if you like Fire Emblem, strategy RPGs, that sort of thing, you like kind of a decent campaign story in a fantasy setting, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I liked it. I liked it a lot. And one thing I forgot to talk about were the aspects themselves. You can also get various little items in the game that will let you swap up unit abilities and attributes and things. Like one character, Benji, I was able to swap his strength and speed, and it turned him into an absolute monster, which was pretty great. So that way he could double people more often, and I made him a barbarian so he could go through half their defense, so even with his strength lessened, he was still able to do good damage. So that worked out pretty well for me. And aspects do make the game more interesting, but it also makes the forecasts kind of bug out a bit during enemy turns, and sometimes during your turn as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is try to pay attention to your aspects. Other than that, I really enjoyed this game enough that I would be willing to play it again on the harder difficulty just to try it out. Maybe try something like a permadeath Nuzlocke sort of thing. So if that doesn't tell you that even with all the glitches and things that seem to keep popping up, the experience does its job well enough that I enjoyed it. I would recommend it to people that like strategy RPGs and are willing to put up with a few little quality of life issues that really, don't matter much because the game still functions reasonably well. Then, I'd say Dark Deity is something that you could try. Once again, for parents, the violence you saw was the violence you saw. There are some curse words, there's some adult innuendos and relationships discussed, women talking to women, men talking to women, etc., etc. Some of the character art, some of the women are less clothed than you would expect for a battlefield. Usually that is somewhat explained in their character backstory, but sometimes it seems like it's just a design decision. So that is another thing to keep in mind. And one more reason I would say the game should be teen, because there are some heavier things in this game, like, nations being destroyed and stuff like that. So, yes, that's Dark Deity, Showcase and Review. I hope you've enjoyed this video, dear viewer, and it helps you figure out whether or not you would want to play. Leave a like if it did, subscribe for more gaming videos, comment below on what you think of Dark Deity. And if you want to see more of it for yourself, I just suggest watching various playthroughs. I played blind, so I was learning things as I went, and I still had a great time. If you want to see people who know what they're doing, then I think Pavis, is the name of the YouTuber who did it. Probably not blind, but I can't remember. I hope you, dear viewer, have a great day.